Welcome to Ancient Chronicles AI. Here, we cross the line between what is known and what is denied, stepping into the Angel Sandalphon, guardian of prayers. Chapter 1. The whisper beneath the heaven's night lay gently upon the world when a single, fragile prayer rose from the earth, like a spark carried by an unseen wind. Its whisper drifted upward through layers of silence, threading itself between the stars, as though seeking a listener beyond mortal reach. In the highest realms, where light moves like breath and time folds like wings, a tremor rippled across the fabric of heaven. Sandalphon lifted his head, sensing the vibration, as one might feel a heartbeat through the palm of a hand. The prayer reached him not as sound, but as a pulse of longing, soft, trembling, and unbearably sincere. He extended his vast, unseen presence, gathering the whisper as gently as one would cradle a wounded bird. The heavens brightened around him, for every true prayer carries a spark of creation, and this one glowed with uncommon purity. Sandalphon listened, and in the quiet plea he heard the echo of countless others, woven together like threads of starlight. He felt the weight of the mortal heart from which it came, a heart burdened by sorrow, yet still brave enough to hope. The prayer settled into his hands like a drop of living light, warm with trust and trembling with fear. Sandalphon bowed his towering form, honoring the courage it takes for a human soul to speak into the vastness of the divine. He lifted the prayer toward the higher realms, letting its radiance join the great tapestry of supplications that sustained the harmony of creation. As he did, the heavens stirred, for even a single whisper can shift the balance when carried by the guardian of prayers. And in that moment, Sandalphon knew that this lone plea would shape events far beyond the world from which it rose. A lone prayer rises from the earth, and Sandalphon hears it as a tremor in the fabric of the celestial realms, awakening a chain of destinies woven from the fragile courage of a single human voice. Chapter 2. The Weaver of Supplications. Dawn had not yet touched the mortal world when Sandalphon rose into the higher reaches of heaven, where prayers drift like constellations waiting to be named. Countless whispers shimmered around him, pleas of sorrow, cries of hope, murmurs of gratitude, each glowing with its own fragile hue. He extended his vast hands, gathering the prayers as gently as one gathers dew from the petals of a trembling flower. Some arrived as sparks of fire, born from desperate hearts clinging to the last thread of faith. Others came as soft, silver threads, woven from quiet gratitude whispered in the stillness of night. A few descended as heavy stones of grief, their weight bending the light around them, begging for strength no mortal could find alone. Sandalphon lifted them all, refusing none, for every voice broken or bold held a place in the tapestry of creation. He began to weave, his fingers moving with a grace older than the first dawn, shaping the prayers into strands of living radiance. Each thread intertwined with another, forming patterns that pulsed like the heartbeat of the universe. The tapestry grew, expanding across the heavens, binding realms together with the hopes of those who walked the earth. As he worked, the celestial winds shifted, carrying the scent of incense and the echo of ancient hymns sung by unseen choirs. Sandalphon hummed a low, resonant melody, guiding the prayers into harmony, soothing their discord, amplifying their truth. The heavens brightened with every completed weave, for prayers, when united, become the very breath that sustains creation. He paused only when the final thread settled into place, glowing with the warmth of 1,000 mortal hearts beating in unison. And in that moment, the cosmos exhaled, renewed by the devotion of those who dared to speak into the silence. Sandalphon gathers the prayers of humanity, weaving them into threads of light that sustain the harmony of creation, becoming the silent architect of hope that binds heaven and earth. Chapter 3. The Song That Reaches the Throne. A hush fell over the mortal world as a lone melody drifted into the night, fragile as breath, yet bright as dawn. It rose from the lips of an unseen singer, carried by a longing so pure it seemed woven from the very soul of creation. The song ascended through the layers of sky, slipping past clouds, stars, and the silent guardians who watched the realms below. Each note shimmered like a drop of liquid light, untouched by sorrow, untainted by fear, born only of hope. Sandalphon paused in his weaving, sensing the melody as a tremor that rippled through the tapestry of prayers. He turned toward the sound, his vast form bending like a tree stirred by a sacred wind. The melody grew stronger, gathering harmonies that no mortal voice could have crafted, as though heaven itself answered the singer. It pierced the veil between realms, rising higher than any supplication had dared to climb in an age. Angels halted in their duties, their wings folding in reverence as the song passed through their midst like a blessing. The celestial halls brightened, their pillars resonating with the melody's purity, echoing it in tones older than the stars. Sandalphon followed the song upward, carrying it in his hands as though it were a newborn flame. The closer he came to the throne, the more radiant the melody became, shedding its mortal origin and revealing its true nature. It was not merely a song, it was a plea wrapped in innocence, a cry for healing that asked for nothing but to be heard. The throne itself stirred, its light shifting in acknowledgement, for such purity had not reached its heights in countless generations. Sandalphon bowed deeply, offering the melody to the presence that dwelled beyond all names. A mysterious melody emerges from the mortal world, carrying a plea so pure that it stirs even the highest heavens, heralding a turning point in the bond between humanity and the divine. Chapter 4. The Burden of Unanswered Cries. Sandalphon descended from the heights of heaven, his vast form dimming so the mortal world would not shatter beneath his radiance. The air thickened around him as he entered the realm of human suffering, where prayers lingered like fading embers in a cold wind. He walked unseen through streets heavy with silence, hearing the quiet ache of hearts that believed themselves forgotten. A mother knelt beside an empty cradle, her whispered plea trembling like a candle struggling against the dark. An old man sat alone beneath a dying tree, his prayer for one final moment of peace dissolving into the dust at his feet. A child pressed her hands together beneath a broken roof, asking for warmth she had never known, her voice barely more than a breath. Each cry struck Sandalphon like a weight upon his wings, for he felt not only the words, but the wounds from which they rose. He gathered the prayers gently, yet some slipped through his fingers like shadows, too faint to hold, too weary to rise. The angel bowed his head, for even in heaven's vastness there were mysteries he could not mend, sorrows he could not erase. He felt the ache of unanswered cries settle into his being, a burden he carried not with resentment, but with reverent grief. The celestial winds stirred around him, whispering that even silence has its place in the divine order, though mortals rarely understand it. Sandalphon knelt beside the suffering, unseen yet present, letting his presence wrap around them like a quiet, unseen embrace. He lifted their voices once more, weaving them into threads of light, though some flickered weakly, trembling on the edge of despair. The heavens dimmed in sympathy, for the sorrow of humanity is never lost, only delayed in its ascent. And as Sandalphon rose again, he carried with him the weight of every cry that had dared to reach beyond the darkness. Sandalphon descends to witness the suffering of those whose prayers seem forgotten, feeling the weight of their sorrow, and bearing it as part of the sacred labor that binds heaven to the fragile hearts of humankind. Chapter 5. The shadow that silences voices, a cold stillness crept across the mortal world, muting the prayers that once rose freely like sparks carried by the wind. Sandalphon felt the sudden quiet as a wound in the fabric of heaven, a hollow where countless voices should have been. The tapestry of supplications flickered, its threads dimming as though an unseen hand smothered their light. From the edge of the celestial realms, a darkness stirred slow, deliberate, and hungry. It moved not like a storm, but like an absence, swallowing sound, hope, and breath wherever it passed. Sandalphon descended toward the disturbance, his wings trembling with a warning, older than the first dawn. He found entire villages wrapped in silence, their prayers trapped in their throats, unable to rise. The air felt thick, as though grief itself had taken form and pressed upon the hearts of the living. A mother tried to cry out for help, but her voice dissolved into nothingness before it left her lips. A child knelt in prayer, yet the words curled inward, devoured before they could reach the sky. Sandalphon sensed the presence lurking nearby, feeding on despair like a parasite clinging to the soul of the world. It emerged from the shadows as a shifting mass of darkness, shaped by every unspoken fear and every unanswered plea. The creature pulsed with stolen voices, its form rippling with the echoes of prayers it had consumed. Sandalphon reached out with a hand of light, but the shadow recoiled only to spread further, seeking new silence to devour. The angel realized with dread that this was no mere darkness. It was a force born from the fractures of faith, strengthened by every heart that believed itself unheard. A dark force rises to sever the connection between earth and heaven, feeding on despair and unspoken grief, threatening to plunge creation into a silence where no prayer can rise and no hope can survive. Chapter 6. The Battle for the Bridge of Light. Sandalphon ascended to the threshold between realms, where the Bridge of Light shimmered like a river of living dawn suspended in the void. The bridge pulsed with the heartbeat of creation, carrying the prayers of humanity upward in endless streams of luminous threads. But now those threads flickered, dimming as though a great hand pressed against them, choking their ascent. The shadow rose from the abyss below, its form twisting like smoke, shaped by grief, its hunger sharpened by stolen voices. It coiled around the bridge, smothering its radiance, turning prayers into echoes that dissolved before reaching heaven. Sandalphon spread his wings, their span stretching across the horizon like twin banners of celestial fire. The light of his presence struck the darkness, forcing it to recoil with a hiss that trembled through the realms. The shadow surged forward, striking with tendrils of silence that wrapped around Sandalphon's arms like chains forged from despair. He felt the weight of 1,000 unanswered cries pressing against him, threatening to drag him into the abyss. But he lifted his voice, a single resonant note that carried the strength of every prayer he had ever gathered. The bridge responded, its light flaring upward, weaving itself into a shield that shimmered with the hopes of countless souls. The shadow shrieked, its form unraveling as the shield's radiance pierced through its hollow core. Yet it did not fall. Instead, it split into countless fragments, each seeking a crack in the bridge where silence might still take root. Sandalphon moved with the swiftness of a storm, sealing each fracture with threads of light drawn from the tapestry of supplications. The battle raged in silence and brilliance, darkness and song, until the bridge shone once more with unbroken clarity. But even as the shadow retreated into the depths, Sandalphon sensed it lingering, waiting for the next moment of human despair to rise. Sandalphon confronts the shadow at the threshold between realms, defending the sacred path through which prayers ascend, knowing the war for the Bridge of Light has only just begun. Chapter 7. The child whose prayer cannot be stolen. The shadow crept across the world like a slow eclipse, devouring every whisper of hope before it could rise. Sandalphon searched through the dimming realms, seeking even one voice untouched by the spreading silence. He found cities wrapped in despair, villages muted by grief, and hearts too weary to lift their cries to heaven. But then, from a small and forgotten corner of the world, a single spark of sound pierced the darkness. It was the voice of a child, soft, trembling, yet bright as a star refusing to be swallowed by night. Her prayer rose not from ritual or fear, but from a simple longing for someone she loved to be safe. The shadow lunged toward the sound, its tendrils curling like claws, eager to snuff out the fragile plea. Yet the prayer did not falter. It slipped through the darkness, like a beam of dawn breaking through storm clouds. Sandalphon felt it strike his spirit with the force of a bell rung in the heart of heaven. He descended swiftly, finding the child kneeling beside a cracked window, her hands clasped with unshakable trust. The shadow coiled around her, but her innocence shone like a shield, repelling its touch with effortless purity. Her prayer rose higher, weaving itself into a thread of light that the darkness could not grasp or corrupt. Sandalphon gathered the thread gently, marveling at its brilliance, for it carried no fear, only love. The bridge of light flickered in response, its broken sections trembling as though remembering their purpose. The child looked up, sensing the angel, though she could not see him, and whispered her prayer again with unwavering faith. The shadow shrieked, recoiling as the thread of innocence pierced its core, unraveling the silence it had woven. A single mortal child becomes the key to restoring the broken bridge, her innocent plea piercing the darkness, proving that even the smallest voice can defy the silence that seeks to swallow the world. Chapter 8. The Choir of the Forgotten. The bridge of light trembled as Sandalphon ascended once more, carrying the child's unbroken prayer like a flame cupped against the wind. He felt the shadow's remnants clinging to the edges of creation, whispering silence into places where voices once rose freely. The tapestry of supplications flickered, its threads frayed by centuries of unanswered cries and prayers lost to the void. Sandalphon knew the bridge could not be restored by mortal voices alone. It required a chorus older than despair itself. He journeyed into the deep celestial archives, where forgotten hymns slept beneath veils of dust woven from ages past. There, in the hollow halls of memory, lay the remnants of prayers spoken by souls long returned to the earth. Their voices lingered like faint echoes, too weak to rise, too sacred to fade. Sandalphon knelt among them, placing his hands upon the silent ground, and whispered a single command of awakening. The air shivered as ancient harmonies stirred, rising like embers rekindled by a divine breath. One by one, the forgotten voices gathered, forming a choir of souls whose prayers had never reached the throne. Their song began as a trembling murmur, fragile as the first light of dawn breaking through a storm. But as Sandalphon lifted his wings, the murmurs swelled into a vast, resonant chorus that shook the pillars of heaven. The voices wove themselves into a radiant tide, filling the void where silence had taken root and driving back the lingering shadow. The bridge of light brightened, its fractures healing as the forgotten prayers found their rightful place in the tapestry of creation. Even the highest realms paused to listen, for no sound is more powerful than a voice restored after being lost to time. Sandalphon awakens ancient celestial choirs, gathering the voices of those whose prayers were lost to time, forging a chorus strong enough to mend what silence sought to break forever. Chapter 9. The Restoration of the Heavenly Thread. The celestial choirs faded into a reverent hush as Sandalphon returned to the bridge of light, carrying the gathered voices like a crown of living fire. The child's unbroken prayer glowed at the center of his hands, its purity forming the first strand of a new connection between realms. The forgotten voices swirled around him, rising in luminous spirals that illuminated the fractures left by the shadow's assault. Sandalphon spread his wings, their radiance stretching across the heavens like a mantle woven from dawn itself. He reached into the tapestry of supplications, drawing forth threads of hope, sorrow, gratitude, and longing, each shimmering with its own sacred hue. With slow, deliberate grace, he began to weave, binding mortal voices to celestial harmony in patterns older than the stars. The bridge of light responded, its broken segments trembling as the new threads stitched themselves into its wounded core. Every prayer spoken or forgotten, whispered or silent, found its place in the growing tapestry, no longer lost to time or shadow. The heavens brightened as the threads intertwined, forming a bond stronger than any that had existed since the dawn of creation. The shadow recoiled from the renewed radiance, its tendrils shriveling as the bridge pulsed with restored purpose. Sandalphon lifted the final thread, the child's innocent plea, and wove it into the heart of the tapestry, sealing the connection with a brilliance that shook the realms. A wave of light surged outward, carrying restored hope to every corner of the world, awakening voices that had long been silent. The choirs of the forgotten rose in triumph, their song echoing through the heavens like a promise fulfilled. The bridge of light stood whole once more, shining with a strength born not only of divine power, but of human courage. Sandalphon bowed his head, knowing the bond he had woven would endure as long as even one mortal dared to pray. The angel weaves a new tapestry of connection, binding heaven and earth with a bond stronger than before, restoring the sacred thread that no darkness can sever again. Chapter 10. The eternal guardian of the human cry. A bridge of light shone whole once more as Sandalphon rose above it, his wings unfurling like dawn, breaking across the heavens. The restored tapestry of prayers pulsed beneath him, each thread glowing with the voices of mortals who dared to hope. He felt the child's innocent plea woven at its heart, a reminder that even the smallest voice can reshape the cosmos. The celestial choirs faded into silence, their task complete, leaving the heavens bathed in a peace not felt since the world was young. Sandalphon ascended toward the higher realms, carrying the renewed harmony like a mantle draped across his vast shoulders. The throne's radiance greeted him, its light shifting in acknowledgment of the labor he had borne through shadow and song. He bowed deeply, offering the restored connection between heaven and earth as a gift forged from human courage and divine mercy. The presence beyond all names accepted the offering, and the heavens trembled with a warmth that flowed outward like a blessing. Sandalphon returned to his watchful post at the edge of the celestial realms, where prayers rise like sparks from 1,000 unseen fires. He listened as new voices lifted themselves into the sky, some trembling, some bold, all precious. No cry was too small, no whisper too faint, no sorrow too hidden for his ears to hear. He gathered each prayer with the same gentle reverence, weaving them into the tapestry that now shone brighter than ever before. The shadow lingered far below, but it no longer dared to approach the bridge guarded by innocence, memory, and unbroken light. Sandalphon stood eternal, a sentinel of compassion, ensuring that every voice spoken or silent found its way to the divine. And as long as humanity continued to lift its cries toward the heavens, he would remain the everlasting guardian of prayers. Sandalphon resumes his watch, forever carrying the prayers of humanity to the divine throne, ensuring no voice is ever lost again, and sealing his place as the eternal bridge between mortal longing and celestial mercy. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. Until then, stay curious, stay aware, and keep searching the shadows. Take care.